G'day Internet and welcome to Mac's Workshop. In this video I'm going to show you how I installed this vise in my new workbench. I made this workbench in my last video, so if you're interested in that, go and check it out. This is a fairly simple vise to install. The main complexity is you have to build the front jaw there. The back jaw actually ends up being the side of your bench, and if you looked at my last video you'll know that I put the edge of my bench flush with my legs. So my legs also act as a bit of a jaw there as well. Yeah, with that said, let's get into it. The vise I chose is simply called a large front vise. I got it from a local shop called Carbotech, but I've seen pretty similar vises everywhere, including Amazon. After separating the two halves of the vise, the first thing we need to do is mount the back part of the vise to the bench. The main thing to be wary of here is that the mount is perfectly flush with the edge of the bench top. If it's not flush, your jaw might bend into or away from the bench top. I'm just using some chunky M8 screws to attach it, making sure it doesn't move as I drive the screws in. The next thing I need to do is make a jaw for the vise. Now, the 45 by 135 links I have aren't quite wide enough, so I'm going to need to glue a couple together, and luckily I have just enough wood to get it done. I take the two pieces to the planer thicknesser to ensure they have a nice 90-degree edge, and then I head over to glue and clamp them up. When the glue is dry, I clean up two sides on the jointer and then run it through the thicknesser to ensure both sides are nice and parallel. And then I take it over to the table saw to trim the edges. The vise I bought doesn't come with any instructions or patterns for drilling the holes for the jaws. So what I did is I made some measurements and made a bit of a pattern there to make sure I've got the holes in the right place. Once I'm happy with that, then I can move on and transfer those measurements across to the jaws. With my pattern transferred to my vise jaw, I take it over to the drill press and drill out the holes with Forstner bits. It's important to clear the waste from your Forstner bits, as they can get hot really quickly and that can ruin your bits. And nobody wants their bits ruined. The jaw's too big at this point, so it's time to thread it onto the vise to see how it fits. And with it in place, I make marks where it needs to be trimmed and where I need to put the screw holes. Then it's off to the table saw for a trim before giving it a final light sand. I can now thread the completed jaw back onto the vise. I make sure to keep the top of the jaw perfectly flush with the top of the table before tightening the vise to keep it in place. The screws I have to attach the jaw are countersunk, so it's really important I pre-drill my holes in the exact centre so it doesn't shift my vise when screwing in the screws. Unfortunately, I don't have a self-centering bit big enough for these holes, so instead I get a regular drill bit the same size as the hole in the vise and drill in a tiny bit. This leaves a cone shape in the exact middle that I can use to start drilling with my smaller bit. I used a piece of American white oak dowel for the lever and rubber chair feet to cap on the ends. And with that, the vise was installed. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you found it useful. And if you're interested in how I built this table, check the link up around about here somewhere from my previous video. And if you think I've earned it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.